I'm someone that often espouses the idea that prohibition is a very failed public policy. There's absolutely nothing to solve the underlying problem, whatever the problem is. And I often talk about that when it comes to gun control, is that banning all guns or banning a certain type of gun is not actually going to solve the problem and actually resolve the reason why people commit these mass shootings in the first place, or any shootings. When it comes to drugs, I have the same position. Now, people may call me a hypocrite because I do believe in banning abortion. That is another one of my policies, or one of my issues that I always talk about is abortion and how I do not support it, and I do think it should be banned. So it's like, wait, you don't believe in prohibition on guns, but you think that women's bodies should be controlled by the government? Well, when another person's life is at risk, that is the one exception that I have when it comes to abortion or any other issue. Is yes, the government should step in if you are trying to kill an innocent life. Absolutely. Now, you could argue with drugs because I say that I don't think that drug prohibition is very effective. It's that, there are so many drugs, though, like hard drugs like meth and heroin and all these other ones, that just objectively speaking, they're bad. Like, you can argue that pot is okay. Like, most people say legalize pot. Even Republicans want to legalize pot at this point. So, they'd be with me on that. When it comes to meth, heroin, cocaine, what the hell are you thinking? You want those to be legal on the streets for our kids to use? Well, our kids are already using them, first of all. We've had such a vicious war on drugs ever since Nixon came into office. That's when it really kicked into full gear. What has it done to reduce drug consumption? It hasn't done absolutely anything. It's just created criminals because you have banned something. So whether you're a user, whether you're a dealer, so many people have been locked up in jail. And has it really created more benefit banning these substances than just simply allowing them to be free to consume? You're not going to solve the issue of drug addiction by just simply having them illegal. No one's going to get them if they're illegal. There are drugs that are legal that are objectively bad. Nicotine is a good example of that. Now, there are some people that are trying to ban it, but still, it's largely legal across the United States and other countries as well. So, I'm not going to try to argue that meth is better or on the same level as nicotine. Obviously, if I had to choose between being a meth head or being a cigarette smoker, I'd be a cigarette smoker. But the logic is there, though, that like if the whole premise of banning something outright is that it has absolutely no benefits, because even drinking can have some benefits, especially if you drink it casually. Like if you drink wine, it can actually mellow you out, and it's actually a good thing. If you drink like fucking 10 things of vodka every day, not so good. But nicotine has no benefits at all. So based off of that premise, then cigarettes should be illegal, and also certain types of alcohol, because, there's a difference between wine and vodka, so there's a different scale. People can moderate it, but I just don't think that creating an atmosphere where organized crime organizations thrive, because that's what happened with the prohibition of alcohol, is that's how the mob got started in the United States, was bootlegging. Well, that's exactly what's happened with a lot of these drugs. Even weed, like in certain places where they're legalized, you still have drug dealers that are selling laced up shit, because the way it is, it's legalized, but it's heavily regulated to the point where it's so expensive to buy it the legal way that people are still buying it illegally. So it actually, if all drugs were legal and were sold through a legitimate system, then that could actually cause less deaths when it comes to overdose and drug poisoning, because that's what accounts for a lot of the drug deaths, is that the drug that you buy from your drug dealer is not actually the exact drug. There's other shit mixed in there, and you don't know any better, and you're dead. So that's one thing that it could actually reduce deaths. It would completely eliminate organized crime overnight. That's why politicians in Mexico, when they talk about legalizing drugs, they get assassinated by the cartel, because it would completely destroy the cartel as an organization, because without the illicit sale of drugs, whether it's in the United States or in Mexico, then they have absolutely no power and they don't have any money. So, wow, just think of all the deaths that happen, all the gang violence deaths, all the deaths from the cartels, from drug dealers in the United States, either directly or indirectly. Like, just think about how all of that would be solved overnight if all of these organized crime basically has no more power and no more reason to exist. I think definitely that that would reduce deaths more than trying to ban certain drugs, even the hard drugs. So that's why I don't believe in alcohol prohibition, I don't believe in gun prohibition, I don't believe in drug prohibition, because people are just going to get it anyway. But if you eliminate the need for it to be part of the black market and it's actually legitimized, look, you can say what you want about drug dealers and how they deserve to rot for the rest of their lives selling it to people, and they die. There's so many. First of all, legal drugs kill a shit ton of people, and none of those people go to jail. They're legal drug dealers. They prescribe a medication to someone, and they overdose on it. Or they give them painkillers, and they give them oxy. That's the big thing, OxyContin. And they overdose on that because they become drug addicts, and a lot of them do turn to hard drugs as an alternative. But it's like you're creating, the legal system is creating addicts too. That's another thing that people just don't talk about. It's these illegal drugs that create drug addiction, create drug problems. Like my dad, if he didn't pass away, he would have become a complete drug addict because of all the oxy that they gave him to deal with the pain with cancer. So, he was already feeling it. He was like really, really, really addicted. So I just don't see it as a very effective policy. The war on drugs has been a complete failure. Now, there are some people that will agree with that, but then we'll also say, like, well, legalizing the hard drugs is way too far. Maybe I'll believe in decriminalizing it, but the drug dealers should still be punished. But it's not the drug dealers' fault that demand exists, okay? That's just the reality of the situation. If you want to attack the problem, you need to attack the demand problem and not the supply, because if there's no demand, then there's going to be no supply going around. There's going to be no reason for the drugs to be dealt in the first place. It's like, yeah, the drug problem has not gotten any better since these policies were introduced over the past 50 or so years, longer than that. So it stands to reason that we need to rethink our drug policy in the United States and come at it from a different approach. I think a couple of things. I think the safe injection sites are a great thing, so that people who are addicted have a safe place to use their drugs, and they're not in the street, and they're not vulnerable. And if they are, they're less likely to die of an overdose if there are doctors there monitoring them. That's one thing I support. Support the complete legalization and decriminalization of every drug. That's another thing. And we will actually live in a much safer place than we do right now if those policies are actually implemented and we change the way we approach the drug problem in the United States. The drug problem would be immediately much less prevalent than it already is if those things are, especially the end of drug prohibition, and they're actually, drug use won't actually be much higher. So that's why I support all drugs being legal, no matter which drugs they are.